Hello people, and welcome back to part 20 of Ilos, our modded Cities Skylines build. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And thank you for all the support across the live stream, where we finally came to complete the Mar grid frame. The project is done, finally. Been a long time waiting, and super happy with it, I think, to say the least. Lots of individual builds through here, of course, Roy Keane Mall, the Few Candies collaboration over here, and Few Candy Lakes, Steve Goodwin Lakefront and Jane Stars Park, the Eggsy and Karina Memorial Hospital Complex, Tucson University, of course, the transport hub. Just, it all came together so nicely, and it's kind of sad to be leaving it, to be fair. But we all know what it means when we decide to move on from the Margrid project and what's actually coming next. Which isn't a surprise because you guys have seen the title. Today, we are going to work on Ilos' downtown road network frame. So, for those that are new to the channel, and indeed possibly my building style, you might be asking yourself, what is a road network frame? And why are we setting it up? So these are things that I like to do in preparation for my downtown. I like to prepare all of the main sort of arterial connections alongside the public transport connections as well. Map out some nice intersections, which now we're playing modded, we have some extremely nice possibilities available to us. And whilst the initial frame itself is subject to change as individual builds come into it as we begin to construct Ilos' downtown, it's the initial structure that allows us to develop a sense of scale and a sense of scope, rather than just going straight into your downtown and placing assets and buildings as you go. This for me is a much more effective, and I think in the long run works out in a much sort of nicer looking area as well. Of course, we're working with real-life inspiration today, which means we are going to head up to downtown Phoenix. Okay guys, and here we are, finally, at the road network frame. So, on first impression, Phoenix doesn't really do too much more outside of a very typical American grid. Now, there's a few things we want to focus on in order to bring the skyline to life. So, of course, next week we will be constructing the main skyline itself, but today we're just working on the road network. And there's a few things I want to take note of. Of course, we've been working with this big diagonal road in Phoenix, so I'm going to bring this into a nice big, super busy 5-way intersection here, where this road can converge down. Okay, and again, taking note of how many lanes you have facing in and out of each road. You can also see there's a cycle lane here too, so we can bring the cycling into the city. A little bit further north, as we cross over the boundary of the highway, we encounter a one-way system, and how the road actually splits here. So we have like a regular tram road. This is fine, you know, things we've done before. And as we come into downtown, and it starts to get a little bit high-risey up this way, we can see we have a little tram plaza, right? It splits into a one-way system here. Now these are one-way roads. And then it flows off into the grid, which is great, and we've got some really nice node controller ideas here today. And then actually in the downtown itself, there is a one-way flow system active. We can see them here, okay? And you know, don't be afraid to come down onto street level during your road network planning. See how your intersections are marked if you're comfortable using the intersection marking tool. See how the assets sit against the road. We can see that there's a tram line that comes through here against the road itself with a little bit of fencing and then some commercial on the opposite side. Again, with pops of height in various different places around. Some older style red brick buildings, and again some more modern glass front skyscrapers. All things to take note of when you're looking for downtown inspiration. But this is going to give us plenty to work from for working in Ilos. Let's talk about how we can construct the downtown road network frame, shall we? Okay, so the first thing I want to arrange today is going to be the diagonal road. This very much has to take priority as the road network frame comes into play, because this is going to meet at that big 5-way intersection, of course. So let's bring it down. We're going to force to an elevation, and indeed just keep it at the same length, and we can just come straight across the highway. Of course, thank you to the wonderful world of road anarchy now, that we no longer have to bother with having horrendous awkwardness. It's going to make it so much easier. We're very much excited for this, everyone. Okay, so bring this around, and then again, what I've tried in my planning is also several little slip roads here that now come down and feed into the highway, and really carries so much traffic in and out of the downtown. Really, it's turned out such a nice idea, this diagonal road. It's been such a traffic help for the grid. Back to normal behaviour now. We're going to gradually slow it back down to Earth by a distance of 12 units. Now indeed the palette for the downtime is going to be quite important as well. Because we're playing with the American roads, there's a couple of different variations of these. There's the one with the brick and then the grass, which in this map will be sand. And I think I'm feeling the concrete verge with the yellow sort of trim around it. Okay, we've used the red brick one quite a lot in the Mar grid. And yeah, I think we just have the concrete in. So I'm going to run with the 6-lane one, and then let's just go for 30 units for right now, okay? And then we can treat this as the start of our initial frame here. So the next key entry point into the downtown is the northernmost tram network that flows through this area. Now we've done this on stream before, but because Ilos' highway is already sunken in thanks to the wonderful Eggsy who made this map for us, we can just now upgrade using the fine road tools. We also want to get a little bit of terraforming as well, and then just flatten that back out where we upgrade. And then this is going to allow us to integrate some sunken highway directly into the city. I've thought about actually just making it sunken and bringing roads over it, and we're going to do some different things with layers today as well. But this is going to do me for what I need for right now. Wonderful news. Let's come back into our tram roads now, and we're going to be using the 6-lane tram road over this way. So I'm going to draw this tram road down from a 90-degree angle from the top highway that comes in. And this is going to make sure that every road that I draw off of this now is going to be snapped to a 90-degree angle, which is the same orientation as the rest of the entire Mar grid, which is really going to help us keep a consistent shape and really help with the final aesthetic as well. So of course many builds will span out across this and we can factor in the tram transport into them now. And of course this is all to be developed, but it's going to give us an initial spine if you like. So let's discuss the tram interchange as it happens here. So I'm going to dive into the world of 4-lane roads. So I'm going to use the US 4-lane one-ways with no parking to start introducing Ilos' one-way system. Now again, this is going to be an initial spine, so this is going to come all the way down and settle in about here. I'm going to be happy with that. I'm ensuring everyone's still snapped to a 90-degree angle. Got no shifted angles here, because if you get one angle wrong and don't realise it, it screws it up. So do just be careful with it. Alright, and then we're going to want to change our directions, of course. Everyone can come back in here. So now I want to find a distance of about 20 units, which is right there from the top of the junction down to this road. And let's just draw out another spine here now. Alright, these roads will be subject to change and upgraded, and we will certainly be using a lot of our Ultimate American road packs in the downtown. Alright, am I happy with that? Yeah, I think I can possibly even stretch it out to another 30 tiles of measurement, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, so we'll change this. Then this will come down now as the new spine. This is what it's all about, you know, just getting a feeling for the distance and the scale that you're creating in a road network frame is very important to bringing them a little bit more realism. So now I'm going to bring this one off, and again, respecting that one-way system that we found in Phoenix, we can start to bring off some new ideas now. So now I want to make sure that I'm maintaining sort of at least multiples of 5 in each of my blocks in the main downtown. And then this is where the one-way system sort of contraflows now. It comes back down against itself, so we can bring this in. And now we just want to start hooking these together with a little bit of road guideline and a curve tool, and we can start to get in some slightly nicer shapes away from the grid pattern, which is going to help us to break it as well, which is going to be great. Come back into a 4-lane road now, and we're going to grab one of our Ultimate American roads. I think I'm going to go for one of these asymmetrical numbers. And then we want to hit automatically add traffic lights if applicable. Just going to save us doing it ourselves when we're doing quite a lot of it today. Okay, fantastic. So this road can now extend down into the rest of the frame, which we can use this one for. We want to make sure that our wider junctions here are facing into the junctions. I think what we want to do here is now a little bit of network multi-tool. So we'll come in and remove this node. We're going to add another node about halfway along. Probably about there is going to be good. And then we can just enable our traffic lights here now. And then on either side of that node, we can actually upgrade it so the asymmetry actually switches over, which is going to give us some really nice road network detailing as well. Having the little yellow roads in. If you want to go for the ones with medians, they are, of course, an option with the Ultimate American road pack. If you prefer the little raised bit, or if you're just happy with the paint, then of course that's up to you. Okay, and then we can switch all this around. And everyone's happy. So now let's talk about what's going to happen with the downtown tram system in Ilos. So we're going to come in with a tram track first of all. And then we want a traffic light here too. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Cool. So don't worry about the sort of road jank for right now. Everything's going to come together. Let's go ahead and grab a regular tram road. Now we really want no snapping for this. And indeed sort of actual node snapping is going to be helpful too. Now if we're bringing this down, and then we're going to switch into a one-way tram system. Again, following sort of inspiration from Google Earth, we can see that this tram is just going to hug this road, and we can use this as a really busy tram transfer point, and then even bring in some metro into this as well. You know, sort of like a mini downtown transport hub. Always handy for these sorts of designs. So let's just reevaluate what we want to do here. So I think I want to bring this into the junction now. Yeah, that's going to be great. And then this is going to carry out the other side. And then also down and then parallel with this road. And we can now start to bring trams in. The exact same thing is going to happen again from this node, but coming down the other side now. We definitely want to turn off road bending and node snapping just while we get ourselves into position. That's going to be great there. Same thing again. Back onto road snapping now. And then we're going to bring it in here. And then back out. Now bear with me, node controller is going to do some truly wonderful things for us today. Okay. Change your directions. Of course this is the right flow, so we'll have everyone flow in this direction. Now this looks horrific, right? It looks absolutely terrible. But node controller. Let's come into it. We're going to widen everyone off, first of all. And then we're going to offset the entire junction as well. Then with the nodes that are dedicated as the tram node, which for me is the dark blue, I want to start to shift this until it becomes straight with the segment. Okay, and then again, we can square everyone off. Exactly the same with the purple. We're going to shift it. Okay, and then we can also offset the purple as well. And then where we're getting the horrendous tearing, this can now just be adjusted by just amending the main road nodes as you see fit. Bring this one in. Okay, just until you're happy with it. General shape. Everyone's taste is going to be different here. And then what we're actually going to have happen here is have the tram pass through the same node as the intersection. And once we come into surface painting a lot of this, right, let's get sure it's all covered up. We'd need to do the same thing with node controller over here as well. Of course, this node is an absolute mess. This one isn't nearly as difficult though. Let's offset everyone. And then there you go. Just slight offsets with each of your sort of coloured nodes will eventually give you sort of a nice little shape that you can develop a little tram plaza out of now. You do the same thing again over this one. Just widen everyone out. Square everyone off. Again, where we're getting those torn textures, offsets with the specific nodes nearby, I'm just going to tidy everyone up. So it's going to save us from using, of course, lots of different sort of nodes in Ilos. I want to rotate this node around as well with the tram line on it. There we go. And that's going to keep most of us happy. So some really cool ways of forcing a tram interchange into a one-way system and not having to worry about the nodes near the junctions. You know, it's just going to pass through the node now. We're not eating up more nodes by having this in. And it very much allows us to now start bringing in this very parallel rail network through downtown Ilos, which is going to be such wonderful news. There's going to be so many nice decoration opportunities with this. It's going to be great. Can't wait to get into it. So we know that as we begin to construct the main grid now, that these intersections are going to want to be factored in. Okay, so now we've got kind of 2 points of the frame set up. It's going to be a good time now to start linking this one through with this one, which allows us to start constructing the rest of the frame around it. So of course, big, super, dirty, wide American roads, very much the vibe we want here. Now we do have some 8-lane asymmetricals, which are absolutely enormous and extremely American. I do quite like these. So we've got 5 lanes one side, and then 2 on the other. I think I'm on board with that. We'll also make this junction the same thing. And then this one down here. Again, snap to a 90-degree angle, and a road length is also going to be the same. So you will now come down this way. The road in Phoenix also heads off in this direction. So again, at least for the first 20 tiles past the junction, that's where I'm going to have the asymmetry. And then of course just ensuring that all of your sort of main lanes are facing into the junction to give the most amount of flow. We'll also upgrade this section here as well. You see now how these are merging together. Just so nice. Do want the ones with the concrete, don't I? Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Sure. There's so many of these roads. It's very hard to keep track of them, especially first time building a road network frame this heavily modded. Okay, so current 4-way intersection, but indeed in Phoenix we are playing with 3-way. So again, I'm going to bring in one of my smaller roads here. Why don't we start bringing in some of the chevrons as well? And again, we'll bring this up by 20. Fantastic. Node controller, as always, we're going to square everybody off, and then we're going to really widen out this entire intersection. And when we start surrounding this with high-rises and plazas and people arrive into this, it's going to be quite special indeed, everyone, I think, isn't it? It's going to be just such a nice, wide, and mega important intersection. Very much looking forward to getting involved with this. Okay, so now the two frames are starting to link together. Let's bring out sort of our main spines, if you will. We know that we're going to need to do the same node controller trick with the tram line at this point, which is no problem. And then this can now go all the way through. So we will, of course, come back and perhaps refine down into maybe a 4-lane in some places. You know, we're not going to have 8 lanes everywhere because that's not realistic. But at least for these big, sort of thick, chunky downtown roads, we will use the 8 lanes for these. I also want to grab the metro line now, because of course this wants to run parallel with the diagonal road, as it has been doing for the duration of the city so far. Yeah. Bring that in. Where we are maybe getting too much of a stretch with no pillars, we can just use Move It to copy and paste them in, but I think I'm okay with this. Alright, and you're just going to come straight the way through. Yes, please. Let's just snap to a road guideline here so we can see where the bridge ends. It's going to be right there. Let's get this flowing. And again, I don't think I can resist the urge to have metro that's going to flow sort of either side of the skyline here. It's going to be it's going to be so much fun. Oh, I'm so excited to get the skyline, everyone. If you can't possibly tell. Okay. So again, it's lots of more important road networks now coming into play, isn't it? Let's also bring the curve over this way. Yeah, I think I'm going to be happy with that one there. And then this one can now sit parallel, which, how many spaces do we want for a track? It's about 2, isn't it? But that is going to give us a metro connection for the downtown, which is very important. I believe we also have, in the world of the underground, an underground line here as well. That's running, yes, directly parallel, which is fantastic because we can now come under this, right? This one's going to come exactly the same. We're going to bring it up to here. That's going to be grand. And then what we can do now is essentially exactly the same thing that we've done over here. We can now separate them off into sort of 2 different directions, right? That one can come under, and then we can have this as the underground network for the downtown now. So the power of all this pre-prep public transport really coming into play. So now what I want to do is start filling out a couple of the grid patterns that are going to start lying between these frames. And again, using Google Earth as that inspiration as to how these sit. I think what we're going to be able to achieve here is some relatively nice sort of 10 by 10 grids. I'm going to start coming out by a distance of 12 units from this central node. It's just going to be a simple case now of lining these up as we see fit. Not always hooking back into the arterial every time. We will leave different spaces every now and again, which is going to help break a very rigid grid pattern, but the grid certainly has a place, especially if you're taking inspiration from sort of American style cities, if you like. Okay, so we can bring this pattern in here now and have this one come over. So this is the spot where a lot of our skyscrapers are going to lie. And I want to bring this pattern down probably about 3 or 4 times away from that sort of very northern arterial road. This one right here. And then hopefully now if we come into this node, we can see a distance of 10 units, which is fine. We can bring that in. Likewise again with this one. And then we'll skip the pattern on this side actually, and then bring it in here instead. And we can see now where we can just bring out these ideas. Snap different angles. Not everything has to be sort of perfect 10 by 10s, right? We can hook back into the one-way system at a couple of points here if we need. And then this can come back down. And that's going to be enough for me. Yeah, I think I'm going to be on board with that. So, as we mentioned, in Phoenix, there is actually a sign of a crisscrossing one-way system. So it's something I want to bring into the Ilos' downtown as well. And the way I'm imagining this is we're going to have this road here that actually become sort of the back end of the one-way loop. It needs to face this way. There we go. And then this can come back into this road here. And then I think what I want to do, and again we'll come back in during our detailing time lapse and perhaps switch some of these out for some of the asymmetrical roads here. If we want a little bit more availability heading back into the intersection, then we can add the second turning lane for them. And that might be a theme that I want to repeat for every sort of connection into this inner grid. So we can do this as well. Right. Very nice indeed. And now just a simple case of mimicking similar patterns in and around. Again, Google Earth, massive for sorting out these kinds of designs. And that's going to fill one of our inner city grids, essentially, as we come to start filling this out with skyscrapers, financial districts, World Trade Center plazas. There's so many different ideas for the downtown builds. Indeed, if you have any specific requests for a downtown build, this is the episode to get them in the comments. So please do let me know. But I'm happy with this so far. So we're now approaching the rail line in Ilos, and I have something extremely nice planned for this as well. So I'm going to grab a good chunk of the nodes as it comes through the downtown of the rail. I'm going to sink it down now. Okay, just to about there. That's going to be good. And then with our terraforming tools, I want to grab the height that the rail is sat on. And then I'm going to tier the downtown today. I think what we're also going to do, just because it'd be nice to see some of these rivers in action, is to actually break one of the, I guess, dams or whatever you want to call this, right? I don't think it quite qualifies as a dam. But let's delete it. Let's also get rid of the rocks as well. And maybe we can have a little bit of a wet season in Ilos as the downtown comes in. And get some nice sort of waterfront builds up. So we will terraform this out so indeed it does start to flow down. And this will fill the entire riverbed here. So as we're coming into Ilos' downtown, the wet season has struck. And the rivers are allowed to flow again. Which is going to be really good to have the river going right past the downtown. So with the river now flowing, I'm going to constantly grab all of this layer here, bring it right up to the riverbed. I'm just going to scoop out a big chunk of sort of tiered downtown, and this will really come into play once you see what we have planned for it. So, there we go. Let's come into our quays, and of course a simple seawall is definitely going to be the most appropriate choice here. And snapping onto a road guideline, we can now just have this run perfectly parallel with the rail for the duration that we want it to. I'm going to grab all the nodes of the quay, and we just want to slide this as close to the rail as we can get it. Again, that's going to be pretty good for me. Let's also move the sun over a bit so we can see this side of the rail today and move our time of day along too. So there we go. That's one part of it in. Then what I'm envisioning is possibly a highway road. Haven't quite decided on the road itself yet. We will see how much traffic comes through this, but there is a 2-lane in each direction from the North American freeways. And I'm going to draw this road guideline off the grid as well. Just leave a little bit of breathing room, and then snap to the road guideline of the rail. We can now bring this road parallel, and then just a little bit of surface paint now between the road and the rail. That's going to allow us to get rid of a little bit of the sand and add to that high density feel. Then we can have that there. Then I'm going to search for a very specific type of fence, and I know the one that I want to use. It's one of the vanilla industrial fences actually. Are going to be the perfect vibe here. We're going to put a linear fence fill on with the prop line tool, and then following the exact same guideline now of the rail and the road and the quay, we're going to place in this fence, and this is going to add such an insane, beautiful little layer of depth and network design that passes through the downtown, especially once these quays are also walkable. We're going to have the bridges of this network come over and pass down onto this next layer. And just being able to see the trains move through the downtown like this now, all fenced off, and it's just going to add so much more life into the city. So you can kind of get a little spice sample of it here, right, you know. Just once we've got traffic coming through here as well. Yes, please, everyone. So a really nice way of integrating rail using Move It, Key Anarchy, and a little bit of Service Painter just to help it sit in just that touch easier, right? Fantastic news. So now, again, I can see that I actually want my one-way system to break here. So this will be the end of it. So I'm going to come back to my little downtown medium roads now. And this is going to come over, of course. Let's bring it up to... Let's redraw this, actually. Let's go for there. And then we're going to force into an elevation. We're going to come up just until the bridge exposes itself past the quay. Now, there is something we want to do with the quay here. We want to come back into our quays. And then we're going to grab the fenceless seawall with quays. We're going to align this one under the bridge. And then move back to the ones with fences. And then using Move It and just a little bit of node manipulation now. We just want to slide these quays together so it looks like the fence has been cut away to allow the road to actually pass over it. And again, it's something we can do over here as well. Just elevate it up a touch. So I probably will end up bringing this road network up just a little bit more so people can pass under the road to make it walkable. But for right now, we're just worrying about establishing the frame and keeping the quay sensible as well. So a very small micro amount of detail just having this little cutaway gap, but in the grand scheme of things it'll help. Then it can go off towards the waterfront, continue as a key arterial road, and then do exactly the same thing with every other road network that comes down here as well. Likewise with this one. So that is indeed what we're planning for Ilos' downtown rail network. Also feed a direct line into the airport from here too. Okay, got a very busy train line coming through this way now. Everyone's going to have a nice time. So now I'd like to have a little focus on what happens to the one-way network either side of the main sort of downtown grid area. And this is quite interesting. So actually it carries on coming out as a one-way system. I'm going to do this by 50 tiles initially, right? And then there's lots of suburban grid that sits on the outskirts of the downtown. Sort of low density residential stuff, so we'll save that for our detail in time lapse. It's not overly interesting road network. Alright, cool. So we're going to have that there. Now let's prepare the next spine here, and indeed we're going to link this right the way in with the Mar grid arterials, okay? So very much how we have this aesthetic over here. Let's head over to this point. So this one right here, right? So it's just an enormous stretch right the way through the Mar grid, and it just goes and goes and goes. You know, just a super long road. Very key vibes in Arizona and probably most American cities, to be fair. So again, it's now just obviously going to be sort of set within the downtown itself. So definitely something I want to bring in, and we'll use this again as frame. So let's just go ahead and temporarily grab these roads and we'll begin to hook everyone together. Again, it's just going to give us a little touch of interconnectivity. Cool. Again, we'll worry about exact roads during the detail and time lapse. Really just a frame for the minute. Okay, this is good news. Let's come back into our 4 lanes now and let's switch it up. Why don't we go for... yeah, a little bit of the brick median. Let's go for this one. So this one right there is going to be where I need the one-way road to split, and then I want to save 20 tiles. So we can just find 20 here. There's the connection. Right, the other side, snap this one, and then bring this one straight down now as well. This can be another arterial that feeds into the tiered lower downtown over here. And then we can snap this now too. So this is the new boundary from which we can play with. So sat here is, I believe, the governor of Arizona's office. There's also the Supreme Court in this area too. And the road is just really cool. So I'm going to have it out here, right? This is going to be good for me. Trim it off now. 25 tiles down this road. I'm going to have that there. Then we're going to use Network Multi-Tools Create Connection mode in order to hook these together. That's pretty much perfectly what I'm after, to be fair. Again, switch our direction around. Once we are out of Network Multi-Tool. There we go. And then so a similar thing is going to happen at this point. Apart from this time, it needs to come down and back onto this road here. For which we're going to use, again, our 4-lane concrete road. You're going to start getting these really nice red pedestrian crossings in the downtown now as well, once these American road packs start to hook into each other. Okay, and then we can grab this one. And then again, I want to just make sure that we're equidistant. That's a 25 tiled gap, so let's find 25 tiles here. That seems pretty sensible to me. And then we can probably just eyeball this one ourselves. Using Road Anarchy, we can come in. It's going to be flush. Hook in there. Let it go. And then again, a little bit of node control now. Just to widen everyone out and add a little more importance into this intersection here, as it sort of fans people off and around. And then again, what we're looking at is some of our simple 2-lane roads using the little sort of, what's it even called? Yeah, just US no parking. 2-lane symmetrical roads. We now just see a very typical Phoenix grid begin to emanate off of this design now. And we can save spaces here. We've got 20 units, which is going to tie perfectly into our sort of multiples of 5. And we can do another 20. Keep different patterns coming and going. And then it's all just about sort of bringing out these very rigid American grids now in patterns that you can see in Google Earth. You don't have to go for exact road network replicas, but you know, that's what I'm not doing here. This isn't a perfect replication of Phoenix. It's all about taking ideas like sort of tram plazas that split off into one-way networks, a very typical grid structure like we're working with in this space. And then indeed how the one-way system actually kind of splits and then maneuvers around specific builds, like the Ilos governor's office, which will sit over here once we come to build it. So I hope if you are sort of at least taking this concept of planning out a frame before laying out any downtown infrastructure, that you do hopefully see something of a benefit, because it is pretty amazing. Again, where we have a chance here, we can get a curve road tool, and then just introduce the slightest little bend now, right? So not everything's so rigid, because I realise that does put quite a few people off when it's just mega endless grid, and I agree, it's not the most appealing thing in the world. Come back to our little asymmetrical ones now, and we can carry on talking about some of these suburban structures. Let's make sure we've come out by 10 units, of course, without a road guideline here. And then we can jump back in and grab these boys. We can feed these in. So, you know, it's all the same shape of grid, but just rotating it by 90 degrees or 45 to shift the angle a little bit, it can make a world of difference to what can be a relatively sterile sort of downtown design. Okay, and then again we'll do a little bit more of our asymmetricals back onto the arterial, keeping the 3 lanes facing into the main road. So before we have a talk about the highway connection here, and it's just going to feed into the grid, and then we'll also have a look at some slip ramps off the diagonal road. I do just want to place down a couple of our assets just so we can see some people get drawn to this area and see how they decide to move around. Again, always quite important when looking at one of these frames. So I'm playing with a bunch of assets. You guys will see more of these during the Skyline construction episode. But for right now, let's just get a few of them down. You can have a brief tease if you want, alright? We'll finally satisfy it. Okay, so we'll just place a few of our Skyline assets in. Just so people can come and chill out and actually get here, because it's going to be nice to see which way the AI prefers. They do have 3 different options now, but of course there's more to follow. So I think with the highway here, we're just going to do some nice curvy roads again, which is going to help us break away from such a relentless grid. So let's do 10 units each side. And again, a little bit of network multi-tool now. We can probably use the other one here, which is one's this. Create connection. It was create curve I used earlier, wasn't it? Yeah, so create connection mode gives you much more flexibility over how these look. You can control the curve of them. There's many shortcuts that you can use to sort of change the angles and whatnot. You know, if you need a network multi-tool tutorial, you can YouTube one. Don't actually left click though, because that does delete your connection. There we go. Let's try that again. Yeah, so let's just bring this up. Okay. I'm happy with that for the most part. We'll accept that. And then we'll do the same thing again with this one. Okay, I think I'm going to be mostly happy with this. And then boom. And then of course, you just want to grab your correct directions. That sort of fashion there. And down into this side as well. So of course, lots of decoration opportunities to be had here. Including, but not limited to, plenty of node controller work. And squaring everyone off and just widening everything out so there's more breathing room. Same thing over here too. Get rid of those connections. Probably want a pedestrian crossing here, because this is going to be such an insanely busy stretch of the road network. So another concept I'm thinking of for the highway connection here is to actually have it continue at sunken through the downtown, and then actually hook up with this network over here. Okay, so with that in mind, this is the perfect chance now to talk about further highway connections for the diagonal road and creating some very big spaghetti vibes off of this junction now. So of course I will flip the metro station around and reinstate its connection. But let's come out with a little freeform tool now. We're going to be using these 2-lane ones. We're going to go for that. No, we're not. We're going to make sure we're forced into elevation first. There we go. Okay. So we'll have that there. Let's bring this out by a touch more. Then we're going to move down into the 1 lanes. So again, a little bit of network multi-tool in order to hook in the road network frames. It's going to make everyone a lot smoother. Dig yourself out a layer that the highway is on. So we'll grab our connection. Let's use a freeform tool as well. Come out of this way. And then now with network multi-tool selected, you can just select your node end either side and connect them in, and then double click your circles. Now we can just control the exact curvature and radius of this descent as it comes down. I think I'm going to be happy with that. Of course, any inconsistencies that arise with the terrain, you can just do a little control and H and move it and set everyone up to the same height. That's going to be good. I'm happy again. We'll do some network multi-slope as well here once things come into play a little bit more. I'll bring this one down on an angle snap as well. Let's not forget to change our directions here. We will also need to ever so slightly finagle with move it to get the North American rails to sit as we want them. There we go. Cool. So this one is going to come under. And again, it's a vibe that I'm going to want to have sat about here. So let's come into an elevation. We'll go for 7 units with no snapping here either. Let's get total control over how this slip ramp comes down. I'll probably still build terrible intersections, even with all these mods. Let's go for normal behavior too. Okay. Again, a little bit janky. Let's bring that up. Again, you can turn off collision if you want for the pillars, but I'll probably place my own pillars in. Just so I have a little bit more control over how this looks. Let's come back on with node snapping now too. And then really, I just want to sort of bend. And coming onto a road guideline, I'm really looking to bend up this curve up this way. Again, it's obviously insanely low. You would want to come through here and amend with multi-slope would probably help us the most actually. Let's go for this one to this one here. There we go. That should just make that slope a little bit more acceptable. And then of course directions will want to be changed once everyone's in position. So I'm just interested to see really just how much traffic these new additions onto the diagonal road for Ilos are going to make to sort of dispersing traffic around the grid. To also make sure our direction is appropriate on this side as well. And there's so many different angles we can slip these off at now. Let's just have a little look. We'll definitely want to remove the turn from here because they will take that turn, which would be not good. So it also doesn't seem like they're going to. It seems like they might behave themselves. We'll wait and see. So a few people choosing to enter the downtown frame via this highway connection. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Anyone choosing this way in and out yet? Not so far, but once more people come, they will. So there we go, right? Some people are now starting to pick up those slit ramps as a way in and out of the city. Indeed, we could do some ramps onto this road as well. It doesn't always have to be off. I think even now, as we sit in the foreground of all this new infrastructure, especially at night time, gives me extreme California vibes. This one right here, all these different layers. Especially once we've got the metros flowing back into as well. Just right in front of that skyline. It's going to be a nice time, isn't it? It's going to be nice. Very much looking forward to it. Yeah, different angles now. People coming on and off. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. Again, it's more ways in and out of the downtown for the people of the highway. Okay, so I'm just eyeing up a few more of these tram single node intersections now like we did over here and in here. So I'd like to get the tram network set now so we know exactly where it's going to come and go. It's going to feed people right through the heart of the downtown, bearing in mind all of our skyscrapers are going to be sat here. And then we'll feed it along the quay for a little bit. There will also be a stadium here too, so we'll probably feed it alongside the stadium and then back up, and then it can link up with this way and then head back out of downtown to service people up this way. We will also be continuing the line that flows through the Mar grid. This will now come across this way. It's going to meet up with this new tram and we'll develop some kind of tram interchange plaza, of course, during a build or a stream. And then we can have interconnected tram activity between the Mar grid trams and the downtown trams, which again is going to be just great for public transport. So I'll time-lapse these up. Let's do some single node 4-way tram intersections, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, so the trams are in. And I'm very happy with how this looks. Okay, we can watch one cross over one of the expanded nodes here once we get a second. And of course once it's surrounded with more surface painter and detailing and skyscrapers, my word, I think we're going to see a really nice tram system for Ilos' downtown, right? Wonderful. People turn around at the sort of tram plaza as well. So now I want to start rounding out the eastern side of it. I'm going to switch up our road now. And I think I'm going to come down into just some, not the median now, just some regular sort of roads. Try and move away from the medians as we head out of the downtown itself. However, we can see again in Google Earth that the grid actually begins to shift now. Ever so slightly bends. So again, it's a vibe that I want to bring in to my city. Let's go for a road here, and we'll use this as kind of the base angle. Again, we can see that we're parallel with current existing nodes. And we're going to come out by 10 on this point. Again, you can either this up yourself. Network Multi-Tool will also do this for you. But I'm very much after a specific theme. So I'm going to do this manually. Alright. So just a very slight shift in the angle of the grid here. I'm also going to extend this one out to be a new arterial connection, and we can just drag and draw that by finding the same node and then bring this up. Again, it's a case of your smaller sort of internal grid. Frames and networks can now be brought into this area. There's so many different designs and palettes for this, especially if you're taking inspiration from like American cities. Just so much inspiration at your disposal. Bring that up by 31, just slightly out of our sort of current measurements. I'm okay with that. And these can now be expanded to accommodate various different builds. Hospitals, universities, just endless possibilities. So Chase Field actually lies over this way in Phoenix itself, which is the home of the Diamondbacks. Which I'm not sure what sport that is. Is it basketball? I'm not sure. Don't really follow any American sports. I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know. It's all Q. Angry Diamondback fans anyway. Alright. I think we should be alright. Cool. So I'll do a little bit more node controller here as well. Let's bring the offset back and see if we can shift out our blue friend over here. There we go. So that's going to allow that tram integration back into the road network now. And then we can allow this to expand off and out this way. So we also have a dead highway connection here that's ready to be expanded in the map. This area will more than likely hold the Sky Harbour build, our sort of main international airport, which will be very fun, but still not decided where we're going to put that yet. But this highway will definitely feed directly into it, alongside a lot of these sort of empty arterials here will also have direct connections into the main international airport for the city, which of course will come soon. Okay, but otherwise I'm really happy with the way that the frame is starting to shape up now. I think I'm enjoying it. So there's one more thing that we want to have a look at on this side as well, and this is using our plain roads to actually just create some very quite boring and simple and generic residential grids. We're seeing these a lot in Phoenix that lie on the outskirts of the downtown and between the highway. So again, I'm going to be sticking in with my measurements, or multiples of 5. It's going to allow for lots of tight back-to-back zoning. So there is one more point of convergence that we need to bring out, and I'm going to jump again into one of my thicker 6-lane roads. Let's go for ones without parking. It's this one right here. It's going to come straight across. Also need to bring the railing as well, which we haven't forgotten about. We're just going to do that in a little bit later, but for right now, road network is taking priority. And again, the fine road tools now are going to be tremendously handy, keeping everyone level. Do some retaining walls around here if we want, if we have the nodes. And I probably don't have the node availability. Okay, I've actually just checked, we're 46% of the way through the nodes, having only done this already, so it's not too bad. Still got technically not even halfway after everything we've done so far, so I think we should be okay with the nodes. Okay, super. Another great, amazing, huge arterial connection into the downtown. It's yet again more interconnectivity for the area. Let's go ahead and grab one of our favourite suburban palm collector roads that we've been using throughout the Margrid project. And these can now come into play as well. And I'm going to stick into my measurements of 5. Let's go for a 10 curve off the back of a 20 measurement. So this will allow us to start introducing some more interesting road designs alongside sort of the regular boring plain stuff, which definitely has its place but can become a little bit monotonous after a while. Right, and then we can possibly eye up sort of further sub-connections here as well, you know. Let's bring off another one on this side, and again we'll force into an elevation as we cross over, and it's yet just going to keep providing more layers of height for this main highway, which is now starting to look a lot more important. You can imagine what this will be like once it's got this suburbia either side of it and the skyline behind. It's going to be just tremendous. Really wonderful. Can't wait. Cool. So we'll switch back to our collector system now. We're going to bring this out by 10 more. Let's see what we can do here with a guideline and a road length. Slightly shorter there. So just think about how you fill in spaces with road network as well. You know, have you gone sort of too large in your sort of scaling predictions here? Or have you nailed everything? I've also got a connection I want to bring off down here as well. This wants to be connected into the downtown network. So all these little bits of network that we've prepared over the last 20 episodes and 17 streams now helping us construct the downtown a lot easier than just starting from total scratch in an empty area. So I think we'll do one more thing here before we jump onto this next tier and start mapping out some slightly more interesting road patterns this way. And this is to integrate one of the metro stations just so we can see the trains coming and going from the area. So we'll place it in and then we'll of course give it a little rotate with move it. And we'll have it here. It's going to be good. Let's go ahead and grab the metro track. Tell it to behave normally. Bring it down this side as well. So again, it's probably going to be a good idea to have another metro stop in here as well, isn't it? So we'll do that. Do we want to maybe use a different one here? I think I'm happy with these. These are my best friends for the time being. Let's bring these over, snap that connection back. And then let's grab the metro. And turn off collision if you want to so you get your pillars back. That's actually going to provide a really nice wrap, almost like a little boundary for where the skyline can sit. And also a very small complement to the eventual crawling height when you've got such a thin layer like that there. Okay, so now I want to return to the idea of integrating the highway into the downtown. And I think this is going to blend quite nicely into the design that we've been using with the keys over there so far. So I think I'm going to temporarily remove these connections. They will still remain connected, but for right now I want them off. We're going to keep down to the ground, and I think I'm going to sink down here by about 7 meters. Okay, we're going to come on with Anarchy, and then just ignore the current road network until we decide exactly how we want this thing to sit. Do that on there as well. Repeat the same thing here, come out by 17, and then down to a distance of -7 units. And then we can bring this straight the way down now. So these one-way American roads don't actually have an elevated version, however we can use the Vanilla Plus roads instead. So we're going to force these into an elevation as they pass over the highway. And possibly into here as well. However, let's do a little bit of node controller, just so we can control exactly where the bridge elevation point ends. Let's add a node in there, then we can grab our road again, and then just force that section into an elevation. Okay, and it's probably worth now at this point, I imagine, because we're moving from 3 to 4 lanes here. Yes, this might as well just become the Vanilla Plus road now, rather than the American one. We're only losing a lane, but it's in a one-way flow system. We shouldn't have that much trouble. And we're not having any awkward pillar action here either. So I've got some cool ideas of how we can actually end the highway. However, we are going to have to return briefly to this road here that's going to flank the rail. And I think I'm feeling a treed road for this. I think we might just go with a regular vanilla one for once. And let's align this now. So we want to give it a little bit of breathing room, because again, I do have some initial plans for the railway now. So we'll have that in. Of course, we can upgrade these trees as well. And let's just allow this to serve as some sort of spine for the time being. Coming to move it as well, and we're going to grab all the nodes of only the rail sections. So we're going to go for tracks, And then we just want to grab basically all of this here for a good chunk, probably even further over here as well. And what I'm looking to do now is just to make a little recession against the road and the quay, and possibly even just slide it over a bit as well. I will have to remember that we've moved the rail line because it will now be sort of awkwardly bent over these sides, so we have to remember to fix that. Okay, now these nodes are slightly higher, so we're going to grab all of these, do a little bit of control on H, and then we're going to find a node on the track to set it to that height. Wonderful news. And then we can terraform out this layer now, so we know where we're going to appear. And we can see what's going to happen here now, I think, can't we? So with the road that enters the city, this is just going to join onto a connection as it crosses over the rail. We can come in here, and again, we'll want to make sure that move it does have enough clearance. Again, we'll do that during our detailing time lapse to make sure the trains can get under. That's going to be fine for me. I'm really happy with that. Let's come back into our terrain now, and we're going to grab ourselves a little level terrain. Just back up to where the highway sits. And then what I want to do is actually grab the highway again. And then we're going to do something quite nice here. So I think we're going to snap this section off, and then we're going to come on with a curve tool. We're going to do 5 curves. So let's actually do a 6 curve here. Looks like that should get us across the highway relatively sensibly. Yeah, that's going to be fine for me. Let's also make sure that we correct this terraform in here. Speaking of, this road actually wants to be forced into an elevation. So we'll do that as well. And then we can just snap to this guideline. And then bring it out. And then this can come down now and connect. And then we can use move it to, of course, finagle bends as we wish. We definitely might want to sort of bring this one down a touch as well. And this is going to give us another little curve in what is becoming an extremely relentless grid. In order just to straighten things out a bit, again, might want to just amend a couple of these node positions and segments, of course, which we can do. But I think this should be quite a nice little way of introducing the highway into the city. So, let's change our directions now. So everyone's flowing the right way. There we go. There's a touch of junk there, isn't there, with that node? Let's bring him down. There we go. So now let's return to the wonderful world of keys. And whilst we do have the terrain set now, let's also level out back up to where we want the key to lie, which is probably going to be about here. And then we can just bring this across now. And hopefully once we get this settled in, I'm thinking probably about here is going to be a sensible spot, isn't it? Yeah, and then we can bring that up. And any node inconsistencies can just be set to the height of the nodes that we're happy with. There we go, slight incremental change. But that should give us a really nice aesthetic, especially once we take this terraforming away. And perhaps we even change out the tree for one of our content creator palms, just so we can get a brief impression of how this road will look. Definitely a little bit of node controller in here too. Let's bring this out. So during testing, I did actually try to do the same thing with the rail that we've done with the tram nodes. So they kind of sit in one node and flow together. Doesn't really work that well with the train lines. I think because the angle's so sharp, it actually snaps the train line. But yeah, we'll do some nice detail around here anyway. I just think what a wonderful little spot that is now, right? Much more interesting networks coming together. Keys, layers of highway, rail and road. Just a nice preparation for our downtown thing, isn't it? Cool. So we'll definitely make sure that the trains have enough clearance as they come past or away with one. Here we go. We should be able to check it together. Let's see what's going on. See how much room we actually need. Yeah, so we're not that far off. We're only clipping a couple little bits of the train. That's going to be okay. I'm happy with that. So again, we can bring the keys all the way through now. Of course, just going back to upgrade intersections that need the fenceless key implementing, which we will respect that today. There we go, a nice big 70 unit of key, 180 degree snap. And then it's these sorts of roads now that just want to be turned into a false elevation using the fine road tools, and then just amend any sort of clipping that's happening with the key. But even at night time, we should be able to see what a wonderful little detail this is going to be, right? Especially once this highway is busy and we have actual downtown on either side of it. That's going to be very exciting. I'm very excited to have key-lined sunken highways in the city at this point. Should be quite nice, shouldn't it? We hope so, anyway. So now I want to start working on sort of the waterfront road network that's going to lie in this part. We're going to see if we can take this a little bit fancier. So, of course, as always, we're going to a new area, so let's start bringing down our main arterial connections. We're going to switch over to some of the sandy road for this while we're down by the water. It's going to work quite nicely. Then what we can do here is find the exact distance between here to see it's a distance of 116, which gives us a 58 halfway point, so we can find that. There we go. And then we know that this is our halfway point on this road, so we can bring this one down as well. And really we want to just kind of cut all these off. We actually have 4 lane here, don't we? That's going to be fine. So we'll just bring this right down the water. Trim up a little bit here, and then start to bring some curves in as well, hopefully. There we go. Slight little bend on that one. That can connect in. This one can also come down on a 180-degree snap. This will give us sort of a base arterial frame to work with, alright? We also see there's opportunities again where our initial frame wants to actually come down and over the road, which we are more than happy to oblige. We want to come out from this space, and again we'll force up until a certain point. Let's actually redraw that. Go for this one. Then we'll force into an elevation here as we come over the road network. I think that's going to be okay for me. Again, more layers of height now developing in the downtown. It's all getting quite nice now, isn't it? Okay, it's been set by another 5, and then we're just going to select a little curve road now. And we'll go for 6 curves, I think, with no road guideline. And we'll come down 3 meters on each turn. There we go. And then this can now connect back into that frame as well. So yeah, again, more interconnectivity. You could also keep this elevated as well and just have a large elevated arterial run through the riverfront if you're working with similar ideas in this map. But that's going to be nice. I'm going to be happy with that. I want to come back into our cute little American roads. We're going to go for the ones with yellow markings on them. Now I think for a lot of the roads around this way, I actually want to be working with possibly some Vanilla Plus roads. And working with these trees just so we can sort of see how they perform. So the middle stretch down here is 78, so let's find roughly a halfway point there. Which should take us to 39. There we go, that's halfway down the road. So we can mark that one off. And then either side of this, let's do 10, I think. That's going to be a nice measurement. Yep, 10 up this side as well. So just marking the halfway point exactly where that is on the road is going to be nice. And then let's draw out this side, and then we will remeasure these ones. Let's go for... let's do 11. That's going to give us some back-to-back zoning opportunities, isn't it? If we come to do any sort of zoning around here, that should also be 11. And then this can be 11 as well. Right, so just sort of fancier frames now, right? Not as sort of rigid and as corporate as some of the heavier downtown grids where our skyline is going to sit. We're a little bit more free and easy, a little bit more creative over here. We're definitely going to start bringing some curves in as well. Then I'm going to grab a 4 lane, and again, just to keep moving up the different road styles that we do have. I think I'm happy to bring in some of these little yellow line medians again as well. They're going to work nicely with the yellow trim on the elevation there. This can now come over, and this one can come over too. And we'll probably do the same thing, I imagine, on this top one. Bring it in. We'll be very keen to actually possibly try some cable cars back into from the top tier of the downtown down to the bottom layer. That might be quite cool. And also feel free to drop ideas for other methods of integrated public transport into the downtown area as well. We'll definitely do an underground metro network during the daytime time lapse too. Okay, I'm happy with this. Let's come ahead and grab these little vanilla roads again. I want to start breaking off the grid now, so let's have a little look what we can do to accommodate this. See if we come out by an angle of 64 from the corner. Let's do that again over this side. Again, keep an eye on exactly what angle we're snapping from. 64.3 is going to be fine for me. Okay, so I'm happy with these angles. It's not looking too bad. Even though it's not quite center, that's absolutely fine. So again, we can know the distance here now is 11, so why don't we remeasure it out from this point here to find out that it's there. So go for that one. And then we'll measure out another 11 from this point. Should be one more node over. There we go. Bring that out. Then we can cut this through. And that's coming with a curve now as well. And a road guideline can be helpful in certain places, not always the best road guideline, it can mess with you sometimes. And then again, we can do the same thing over here, realizing that we are at the same distance of 11 tiles, which is fantastic. Come off the road guideline. That's going to be 12, isn't it? That's 10, just in between. I can very nearly find it. That happens, you can just draw out here, it's come off the grid. That snapping will be messing with us. Oh, there we go. Yep, that's the one we want. And we can bring that down again. Come into our curve tools, a bit of road guideline. Let's bring some curves in. So you can now just start to see how you can construct these really sort of tightly knit, much more interesting designs, while still playing with an initial grid frame, right? It's not too dissimilar from any grid action that we've looked at so far in today's episode, but it's just a little bit more interesting. Slightly varied road network, a couple of curves and angles starting to break away, and before you know it, you can start to generate some really nice patterns. I'm happy for all these to come back up to the main network. And then let's break that idea here. Let's do another 6. Come out by a 5 curve. Make sure we mimic the curve on the same distance. There we go. And then this can connect back into here now. And that should be okay for all the connections outside, I think. And then with some spaces that we have left in the middle, again, we can do some really interesting things with these. Let's snap onto a road guideline on the edge of the current existing grid. Let's see where we can go here. Let's go for about there. Seems about good to me. And then we'll do little 3 curves. Yep, that's going to be good. And then within sort of the internal sort of frame now, we can start to bring in little custom systems. So this is a great opportunity now to dive really close into your chosen inspiration in Google Earth and pick out some little networks like this. This little roundabout here, or sort of, it's not a roundabout, is it? Well, yes it is, just not round. It's more like an oval. But it's taken from Phoenix, right? This is just a little network in Phoenix that I've found that I can now use to flesh out some designs over here. Might also want to respect the curves again and bring in another intersection over this side. Again, for which node controller can be used to hide any pedestrian crossings you don't want. And then also just widen everyone out a little bit. You can possibly do the same thing over this side too if you want to connect straight into that corner. And then as these arterial frames now leave the downtown and head into whatever lies over there in however many episodes time, those networks are prepared. And how about we do another one up this side? Bring it out by 10 again. This is a pattern that we can possibly repeat, isn't it? So it's going to be 9 units from there. Let's rethink that design then. Let's go for 9 units here, and then that's 9 units back to there. So keep a very rigid box of 9 in. But we're not always going to connect this back into the frame. Only at certain points. Okay, and then maybe if you're feeling it, you can come back and downgrade into some yellow asymmetrical if you don't want trees everywhere. Of course, entirely up to you. Depends what you want to put here, of course. I'm thinking for this area, we're going to have lots of bars, especially along the waterfront. Sort of some nice tourism stuff over here. Possibly a few casinos down here. I know we've been getting a lot of requests for some casino builds. Which, we will have casinos, but probably not in the Vegas style strip a lot of you are thinking of. That's not the vibe I want for Ilos. But certainly some waterfront casino action happening over here. And nightlife and all our little usual fun detailing bits and pieces that we can get involved in during streams and episodes. Okay, so this one here, I think I'm happy to bring in some more rigid rudimentary patterns here, which works nicely amongst the curves and the shattered angles. And then let's maybe feed one of these down back onto the main sort of waterfront road that sits over this way. And then again, as Ilos grows out this side, again, probably another road that will connect directly into the airport, as will a lot of these sort of east-facing arterials. Most of them will end up there. Okay, but that's not going to be too bad, is it? I think I'm really just happy with that as an initial frame. It gives us some nice shapes and some ideas to play with. Up against a riverfront, which is something I didn't think we'd get the chance to play with in Ilos. But having broken the dam now and letting the water flow for a bit, I think it's nice, isn't it? Let's actually see if it's affected the other river. It should have flowed. It stops about here, doesn't it? Yeah, that's because we need to break the other dam if we want that to happen as well. At this one over here. I think we might leave this one closed. We'll see. I do like the dry riverbeds. I don't know, maybe I'll let you guys choose. Do you want the rivers open for a bit? Should we have a little bit of flowing water? Now you're sort of seeing it by the downtown. It makes a nice change from the relentless sand, right? I think it does. Wonderful news. I think I'm happy with this. One final possible observation that I'm not actually massively happy with could possibly be the inclusion of using a 6-lane avenue with trees down this middle section instead. Because again, it's going to give us opportunities to upgrade with one of our workshop trees this time. Maybe California palms down here. How are these going to work on a road? We'll have a little look. Yeah, see, I don't think anything beats the California, does it? That's just very Phoenix. That was like just such a favourite design. Having tree-lined palms, and maybe we can do sort of smaller, shorter palms. Maybe some junipers here and there as well. I do like the junipers; they're very nice. But I do think that the California short palms are probably the most appropriate for the theme that we're working in today. Yeah. Of course, we can mix and match. Doesn't have to be the same everywhere, but again, just a little bit more interesting vibes added into your road network, isn't it? When you've got all these trees knocking about. Wonderful. So we've got a really nice run down to the waterfront there. Some shattered angles coming into play now too. Some curves and some tighter loops with one-way systems. Indeed some treed roads just to help make things a little bit more interesting for when you actually get around to building this section of the downtown. So there's one more network connection I want to make here, and then we can probably talk about finally heading into a detailing time-lapse. I do apologise if this hasn't been your type of episode. It's insanely network heavy, it's not really a build, but it needs doing, so you have to deal with it. Okay, cool. Let's force into an elevation, and we're going to grab the road guideline at an 11 curve. And we will mimic that exactly as we come down, and then we can behave normally and connect in. This actually wants to remain as network though, not the American ones. Cool. Are you going to take my little new highway slit ramp? Yes, you are. Wonderful. Let's see. So, oh yes, there's someone new as well coming into it. That's really good news. So he does his turn, gets back onto the highway. Very happy with how this has turned out. This little loop system as it kind of crosses over itself. However, guys, finally, that feels like a wonderful place for a detailing time-lapse. I'm going to carry on bringing in lots of this very boring, rudimentary, rigid suburban grid to surround the entire downtown frame so we can have that sort of field of low-density residential that lies beneath the skyline. Carry on refining all the key work around the highway to rid things like this, and then also come back and do the fenceless seawall key, so we can get the little frame with the fences between the roads. Definitely want that. I think I'm also going to remove the concrete from the surface painter on the sunken rail, which is unusual for me, but I think I'm just going to have this a little bit more naturally sat. A little bit of overgrowth, and definitely bring some of that fencing back over here as well, because that's just really nice design. Such a huge fan of this. Especially now seeing this, right? Look how much more interesting this is. It's got road going across, main road here, other connections coming off it. The quay itself is basically a road with people walking on it. And then, of course, the new sunken rail here now as well integrates really nicely into the downtown. We may end up putting a station here, but possibly not. And we'll probably feed the rail off separately into the downtown transport hub build, wherever that lies, rather than have it here. And then otherwise, just tidy up any other little inconsistencies I'm not happy with, do some node controller action around most of the major intersections. And then also just sort of rearrange perhaps my lane management here, so we don't have 8 lanes where we don't need them to be. But otherwise, let's detail up and continually expand Ilos' downtown road network frame, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares below really help me out. If you'd like to help support me, there are links to Instant Gaming and Patreon below. Equally as much if you haven't enjoyed it, then please feel free to leave me a dislike as well. As you can see, we have now expanded the quays exponentially around the downtown, continuing to bring in that tiered sort of vibe that we looked at with the rail on the road at the start of the episode, to help give a little more importance to this sort of fancier waterfront area, which we now have the possibility of working with thanks to opening the rivers. Of course, next week the skyline is going to come, which is the best, easily. One of the best bits about this game is building the skyline, and we get to do it next week, so really excited for that. And of course, the road networks will bend to the whim of the buildings as we come in to do individual builds in each of these modular sections now as we begin to build Ilos' downtown district. Indeed, if you have any suggestions or ideas for downtown builds, this is the video to get them in the comments. And of course, we will continue to take inspiration from around the American Southwest on Google Earth. Also brought across the bicycle lane and a ton more public transport, and also included the metro plaza as well, which should look really busy on that corner once the downtown actually has things in. I have placed a few things around just so we can see people using the road networks as we say goodbye in the cinematics today. I have left quite a lot of the space to the west of the grid quite empty because we're going to have some pretty significant industrial builds over there, so there's not too much point placing that many frames because they're pretty special builds. But as always, there was a ton of detail that you guys wouldn't have seen, so please do hang around for the cinematics and check out this place at night time as it sits at the foot of the Margrid now. Otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.